Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Philosophy for Philistines channel, where we're going to plumb the impenetrable and talk about this incredible phenomenon due to mankind's own pathology of renaming things because the way that they really are just doesn't suit him. So I'm going to embark on a series called That's Not Socialism, This Is. That's not a Chihuahua, this is. See? Baby Chihuahua. Daddy's boy. Okay. That's my new dog, Jim Beam. Or his name in Norwegian is Solskin, sunshine, because he's brought a lot of sunshine into this house. All right, back to the topic at hand. There's an incredible propensity for people who are deeply under the influence of certain ideologies to absolutely deny the influence of those ideologies on their thinking. It's so profound that it's practically pathological. And it also indicates to me clearly that educated people aren't necessarily intelligent. In other words, they're not able to look at the root cause of their thinking and get to the bottom of it to understand what is actually motivating their thoughts. There's one motivation that remains consistent in postmodern thinking. I don't want to be accountable for my own actions, really. I don't want to be held too responsible for my own welfare and safety and upkeep. So I'd rather surrender that to the state because, after all, the state is so benevolent. Forgetting, of course, that it's the state that has all the power. It's the state that controls the police. It's the state that makes laws that contradict civil liberties. And therefore, the state is the only source of oppression. So as we embark on this series, I have 3 key books that I want my listeners to read. The first of which is Dr. Gad Saad's The Parasitic Mind, How Infectious Ideas Are Killing Common Sense. Read this book, strengthen your resolve, and help us all return to reason. That was the epithet written by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. It is a USA Today national bestseller. There's a war against truth, and if we don't win it, intellectual freedom will be a casualty. The West's commitment to freedom, reason, and true liberalism has never been more seriously threatened than it is today by the stifling forces of political correctness. Dr. Gad Saad, the host of the enormously popular YouTube show The SAAD TRUTH, exposes the bad ideas, which he calls idea pathogens, that are killing common sense and rational debate. Incubated in our universities and spread through the tyranny of political correctness, these ideas are endangering our most basic freedoms, including freedom of thought and speech. The danger is grave. But as Dr. Saad shows, politically corrupt dogma is riddled with logical fallacies. We have powerful weapons to fight back with if we have the courage to use them. A provocative guide to defending reason and intellectual freedom, and a battle cry for the preservation of our fundamental rights. The Parasitic Mind will be the most controversial and talked about book of the year, which is why it became a USA Today international bestseller. The next is a book called The Victim Cult by Dr. Mark Milka. This book is about how the grievance culture hurts everyone and wrecks civilizations. In this wide-ranging look at why societies fail to succeed, the victim cult explains how victim cults arise. Relentless blame of others, faulty moral reasoning, and misguided identity politics. No one disputes that some people are victims, of course, of others accidents, and life. But we also all know someone who seems stuck. They make life worse because of an intense focus on the past. On a personal level, the chronic victim thinker can be toxic. But what happens when victim narratives dominate entire societies? The victim cult tackles this too easy reflex to take offense and blame others. From college campuses to the heights of political power. It also infects citizens who see each other as victims or privileged, but never as diverse individuals with choices. Victim cults are not new. Some have deep roots and end in disaster. Many 19th century Germans thought they were victims of the French, English, liberalism, and Jews. And Hitler later exploited that victim narrative to turn the land of Bach and Beethoven into a nation known for Dachau. Yasser Arafat viewed Palestinians and himself only as victims. When offered a peace deal with Israel, he cratered it, preferring blame and terror over peace. And the third book, Explaining Postmodernism, Skepticism and Socialism from Rousseau to Foucault by Dr. Stephen Hicks, tracing postmodernism from its roots in Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Immanuel Kant to their development in thinkers such as Michel Foucault and Richard Rorty. Philosopher Stephen Hicks provides a provocative account of why postmodernism has been the most vigorous intellectual movement of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Why do skeptical and relativistic arguments have such power in the contemporary intellectual world? Why do they have that power in the humanities but not in the sciences? Why has a significant portion of the political left, the same left that traditionally promoted reason, science, equality for all, and optimism, now switched to themes of anti-reason, anti-science, double standards, and cynicism? Explaining postmodernism is intellectual history with a polemical twist, providing fresh insights into the debates underlying the furor over political correctness, multiculturalism, and the future of liberal democracy. All three of these authors are Canadian. I would like to think that it has something to do with our national zeitgeist. Canada was founded by people that were fleeing the class structure and tyranny of Europe, who wanted to create a society that was broader and more open and more accepting of personal excellency over status by virtue of birth and, of course, by virtue of collective group identity. When I lived in Norway, I saw clearly, as I attended Norskurs, which means Norwegian course, that what that course was doing was actually creating a subclass of citizen, or would-be citizen, because I attended Norskurs with many people who had master's degrees and PhDs, who were forced to learn how to clean houses. So you had medical doctors who could have easily helped the Norwegian healthcare system being forced to learn how to clean houses. The reason I didn't have to take that course is because I was the only one paying to go to school. So in spite of the constant harping on the fact that Norwegian society is based on equality, equity, and equal opportunity for all, everything that they were doing belied that fact, or that assertion. They were creating a subclass of people. The Poles that lived in Norway were practically the only ones who were doing physical labor in terms of restoring houses and construction and electrical work, etc. A nation, just as Canada is, with a complete controlled economy. And yet when asked about it, oh, this isn't Marxism. And yet they failed to examine how many of their ideas had Marxist roots. I was once speaking to a senior military officer who is responsible for all training in our Navy. And he told me, well, not all of Marx's ideas were bad. And, my attitude toward that is, oh no, only the ones that resulted in tyranny, oppression, and loss of personal liberty. Because every single time when Marx's ideas have been applied, they have invariably resulted in tyranny, which is why over those last 2 years, as we have seen the government take more and more control of our private lives, shutting down the economy, controlling everything, that we have less liberty than we did even 2 years ago, and we were already well on the way to accepting cultural Marxist dogma years ago. When I first returned to Canada in 2015, a friend of mine who owns a record label here in town invited us to attend a lecture given by a socialist who worked with young men who were having difficulty because of being separated and divorced, accessing their children. And so my wife and I attended the lecture, and as we entered the building, there was a team of the blue-haired, screaming mob outside, calling me an adulterer, a racist, a rapist, everything but a white Angelo sex-stoned Protestant. Of course, my natural inclination was to engage this young person in a debate, and my wife was horrified. When we went into the hall, where this woman who had a great deal of experience in men being separated from their children unnecessarily without any actual just cause, these same woke terrorists started pulling fire alarms and forced us out of the building, where they screamed and shouted at us, and the police had to keep them separate from us. And when I wanted to speak to them about their ideological possession, I was told to remain quiet by the very people that were trying to listen to this lecture to regain access to children. There's so many contradictions going on in today's world, and people don't seem to be aware of the motivations for their own thinking. They don't seem to understand. Well, they don't. It's not that they don't seem to understand. They absolutely do not understand how much of the ideology that they have swallowed is neo-Marxist thinking. So that's what this series is going to be about. We're going to delve into the neo-Marxist origins of these failures and examine why people that can espouse neo-Marxist ideological possession appear to be completely unaware that they're ideologically possessed. I think it's going to be an interesting journey. I invite you to take it with me, become involved in the discussion yourself, and I strongly suggest reading those books that I've posted. And I just want to express my gratitude to Dr. Gad Saad, Dr. Stephen Hicks, and Dr. Mark Milka for doing the hard slogging of revealing why these ideas have become so pathological and such a threat to civil society. God bless y'all and have a great day.